Why hello everybody, Spectre here, also known as LEGO11, and in today's video, this is a brand new review for you out on the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing the brand new movie, Ghostbusters Afterlife, that came out last Friday. I'm going to be giving you all my thoughts on the film, so without further ado, let's discuss. Alright, so without further ado, let me give you a little bit of information on what Ghostbusters Afterlife is about, and then I'll be discussing all my thoughts on all my notes I took down right here. So Ghostbusters Afterlife. So 37 years after the original Ghostbusters movie, when a single mother and her two children move to a new town, they soon discover that they have relations to one of the members to the original Ghostbusters, and their legacy of their grandfather is left behind. So that's pretty much the premise of the movie there, and now I'm going to get into spoiler mode. This is actually a spoiler review, so if I hadn't said that yet, it is in the title of the video, but I did want to mention that as well, that I will be getting into spoiler mode. So I'm going to be start talking about my notes that I took down. So let's get started. The first thing I have is the soundtrack, or the score, done by Rob Simonson. And this was one of my favorite soundtracks I've heard in a long time. Now, as I love Marvel soundtracks, and the score, I love a lot of the Marvel composers, and Danny Elfman and John Williams are great composers as well, but I've never actually listened to this guy here. But the like nostalgia factor, and that's something I want to mention later in this review, but the like way they just reminisce to the old score and Ghostbusters was so incredible. I was going into this movie thinking like, okay, how are they going to tie stuff in, and like references and all this stuff, which we'll get to later here. But I was like, okay, what are they going to do? And throughout the entire movie, I was just like, oh my gosh, they continue just playing the tune from the original. So one of the things I want to mention about the score is by the end, again, this is a spoiler review, so if you're still here and you don't want to be spoiled by this, by the end of the film, they do play the original Ghostbusters theme song. It's not a parody, not a cover by Walk the Moon, who did it in 2016. It's the actual Ghostbusters theme song. It's not the same thing. It's like an updated version, but it's the same one by Ray Parker Jr. that did it originally. So that's pretty cool. You don't hear it though until the end of the movie. What they play throughout the film is the same, like, main title theme, as it's called, throughout the film, or like the piano medley, which I really dig that. I love that part, that piece of the soundtrack. It's really gorgeous. It like track in a film, so I love it. I love that they just continue playing that, and also at the beginning of the film they have that like 2-note like flicker or whatever beat in the beginning of the film, and then throughout they play the rest of that like Ghostbusters main theme tune. So I really got a kick out of this soundtrack in particular. I thought it was just going to be something brand new. Now, there were some pieces in this film that were brand new, but just hearing that classic Ghostbusters soundtrack was amazing to hear. So anyway, those are my thoughts on that. But I dug it, and that made me enjoy it so much. So moving on to some other notes, and probably big spoilers here as well. So we get I took a lot of notes here, but the acting was phenomenal. So kind of like two parallel things here. The cast and the acting of this cast was just amazing. We have starring Finn Wolfhard, which I guess Finn Wolfhard isn't even the main star of the show, of the movie. But Finn Wolfhard plays Trevor, and I love the casting choice here, because not only did he bring a lot of presence to the movie as a character, but in one of his main like roles in Stranger Things, he dressed up as a Ghostbuster in the show. I just love that as well, which is one of the reference I took down here. just a nice reference and homage, or I guess not really homage, just Easter egg to that show. Then we have Mckenna Grace, I always forget her name, Mckenna Grace as Phoebe, who is the main star of this film, because she's just like, throughout, she's the main character. And we have, I forget who played Podcast, the character Podcast, but he was really great as well. He was more the humor side, which we'll get to in a minute. And then Paul Rudd, which is All Dream Believer in People magazine, if you don't know. Just throwing that out there to you. He's in this really great standout character, but he's not the main star of the movie. And we have the mom. I don't know who the mom's played by. There's kind of like a throwaway character, I guess. Not really, but yeah. And then we have the girlfriend, love interest to Finn Wolfhard. So that's kind of like the main cast of this movie here. And we also have some recurring faces, which I'll get to in a second here. But the main cast is just they acted so well. Every character has their own little arc, I would say, and by the end, it is just done so well. Which is one of the things I want to mention here. As I say, they had an arc and it's done so well. Is that this movie has such a fresh, unique story to it. One of the things I've been listening to about many people say, and I agree with them, this movie, how it works so well, is that it's done in a way that it brings a new element to it. Like, it's just a fresh, unique story. Whereas the last one, 2016 Ghostbusters, I know you probably don't want to hear about it, but I liked most of that movie. I understand why people don't like it as much, and I actually like the humor in that and the ghosts in it, but I understand why people don't like it as much. I mean, it's just like a flip around, like Ghostbusters with female, which is nothing wrong with that. But when you get that beat by beat, like it's almost like a beat by beat, and it's kind of like, really, this is what they're going for? But in this one, it's not a direct beat by beat, and that's what I love about it. And something I heard, it's not just a movie with like, oh, let's throw in everything we can with like Ghostbusters, and let's throw in all these references. There are references, which I'll get to in a minute, and I did mention that Finn Wolfhard has his the Ghostbusters reference, which is great. But it's not just like, let's throw in these things from the original just for the heck of it. That's not what this movie is. It's a fresh, unique story with Ghostbusters nostalgia and all this extra stuff, which just works. So for me, I love that. Let's move into something that I wanted to discuss. Another thing I wanted to discuss: the humor and the cameos, which we'll get to. We'll start with the humor. Like I said, the character called Podcast was just a great, phenomenal character. He brought a lot of the humor. I would also say that Paul Rudd does a bit of humor as well. I think the greatest connection in this movie, you see Phoebe, who was played by Mckenna Grace, and Podcast have a lot of screen time together, and I guess I wouldn't even call it chemistry, but a lot of screen time together. And Paul Rudd also has screen time with character Podcast, and it's just them together were kind of fun. Was kind of funny, but yeah, Podcast was great. Just kind of, with all his equipment and stuff, using his microphones, just was really fun to see him use. And as well as the goggles that he had, was that the head goggles that Ray Stantz, Dan Aykroyd's character, used in the original Ghostbusters. So that's something cool to kind of see a throwback of in this movie. So yeah, just Paul Rudd and Podcast characters bringing the humor in this film was very great, making it like very lighthearted and humorous in a way. Next up, we got the cameos. So this is big spoilers here, big spoilers. So now this also could be Easter eggs. I threw up a bunch of notes here of it saying like cameos / references or Easter eggs, whatever you want to call this. But to me, these are cameos. So if you don't want to get spoiled by this, which if I've said something already, you probably have been spoiled by now, but then again, there's spoiler in the title, so why are you here? Anyway, let's just get into it. So there's a bunch of cameos in this movie, and something that I love, that I mentioned about Ghostbusters 2016 is that movie to me was done interestingly, like the writing and the way it was done, like, okay, I don't know what it was supposed to be. It was Ghostbusters, but it was different. This is like a transition from Ghostbusters 2, if you want to forget that, like Ghostbusters 1984, the original, to this. Just watch this. But the cameos are done so well and so heartfelt that you feel it. The first cameo that we actually see is Annie Potts, the lobby, the person at the lobby at the Ghostbusters headquarters, and just for the heck of it, like I'm going to mention this, probably makes no difference, but there's a spin-off show to The Big Bang Theory, which is actually one of my favorite sitcoms, and she is in the spin-off called Young Sheldon, which I'm actually checking that out, and it's really good, and she's the grandma in that, and it's kind of cool just to see her in different properties, and this in particular, she is the character that was in the original Ghostbusters, but just thought I'd mention that for you. So she's back. She made a little cameo in that. Not the longest cameo, but she was in for a couple of scenes here and there. She's actually in the end credit scene, which is something I'm getting to a little bit early, but alright. And then we do see, if you don't want to be spoiled, you're still here, great. We do see Dan Aykroyd for 2 scenes, or for a little bit. Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Ernie Hudson, and we don't see Harold, but we do see his ghost come back, which is, I forget who acted that ghost. I can't remember if it was the director or if it was someone else, but we did see a CGI version of him, which was really nice. It was really well done. I did love it. But the funny thing is about that, seeing all of them on screen, because we heard Dan Aykroyd on the phone in the trailer, right? Which I picked up. I thought, and other people thought it was Bill Murray. It sounded like Bill Murray's voice, but it turns out it was Dan Aykroyd. So when that scene came up, it was like, oh, here's Dan Aykroyd, right? Here's Dan Aykroyd on the phone, the phone call. And then later in the film, or even like as the film in the third act is coming up, we're like, okay, the Ghostbusters is going to come to save the day, right? The original. But like days before the movie came out, there were like the morning news, and Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, and Ernie Hudson were like live, going like, yeah, we can't not wait for this film. Be like, well, people, like, seriously, you're in the movie? So anyway, it's just kind of funny, like, spoiling. They're talking about they're in their own movie, so but people didn't know that, and so they said they were in the movie. And funny enough, I kind of thought they would be, but until that happened, I'm like, well, I guess they're in the movie. So those are all the cameos that were in it. I loved seeing them in the back for this movie because it just was a great homage to have all the Ghostbusters there, and like the kids getting some like mentors by the end was great. And also the CGI. Some people were complaining like, oh, having Harold Ramis, Dr. Egon, or whatever, Egon as a ghost was kind of weird, but I thought it was fine. And then the kids hugging them at the end was very heartfelt. I loved it. I loved. It was very touching, very, very touching by the end. So well, I guess we can move on from that because I thought I skipped something, but I didn't skip something. I'm going to take a quick drink break and I'll be right back. So I'm going to get on to the references and the Easter eggs. So I just mentioned the cameos here. There were a couple that caught my mind, or there were a bunch throughout the film that like were back in the original Ghostbusters. I know there was like a big long pause there, but some that were also referenced in other pop culture as well that I thought was kind of funny. Just one that stuck out to me, and then other ones from Ghostbusters. So one was, well, I'm going to mention the Ghostbusters ones first. So the first one was the ghost, and now I still don't know what this ghost is after seeing this movie like last weekend. This wasn't Slimer, but it looked an awful lot like Slimer, and I know it's not, but I don't know. They didn't have a name for this ghost in the movie. They called it like the Metal Muncher or maybe I'm just making my own name for it, but if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below if you've seen it or not. I have seen it, I just didn't pick up on if there was a name for this ghost, and I know there were videos of people saying, like, the things you missed in Ghostbusters Afterlife, I just have not seen that. So, anyway, there was that, and then they also had, another thing was the mini Stay Puffs. They were so adorable, they were just so cute throughout this, the little Stay Puffs, and kind of like Baby Yoda, but not giant Stay Puffs, just mini ones. And then they had, the other reference, I guess, was Gozer. Gozer's back as the villain. I just like that. I like how they used Gozer in this film. And then the Terror Dogs as well going around. I love the one scene with Paul Rudd when he sees this mini Stay Puffs and then goes, "Hey buddy," to the Terror Dogs out there, and he's like, "Hey buddy." It just comes to attack him. Really great, hilarious scene. Not seeing somebody get eaten by a terror dog is not quite funny, but you know, it could be scary at times, but it's funny when Paul Rudd is, I guess, running away from it and trying to be a friend to the dog, I guess. So that's something else. There was another, I think there's another Ghostbusters Easter egg. It might have been the Finn Wolfhard one, but which I already mentioned. And so yeah, something else that I absolutely loved this reference was not a Ghostbusters one, but when Paul Rudd is walking into the Walmart, which the movie is sponsored by Walmart, by the way. I just wanted to say that. Every time I see it, I'm like, this Ghostbusters Afterlife sponsored by Walmart. When he walks into Walmart, you see him walk up to the ice cream. I think he gets milk or something, maybe not. But you see the dairy. He goes into the ice cream, pulls it open, and you see he gets Baskin-Robbins ice cream. Just a great reference, because in Ant-Man, he worked at a Baskin-Robbins. Just a great reference. I hope they did that on purpose. I don't know, but I love that reference. And I haven't seen anybody else pick up on that. But I just loved it, and I love saying things like that because it's like, oh, look at that right there. They did the thing. So yeah, just something I love picking up on, and that was something that was great. So moving on to kind of a couple last things here. Number one, kind of a wrap up here. Well, before I get to that, I'm going to talk about the end credit scenes because I kind of put these out of order. It kind of made it weird, but I wasn't sure how I was going to talk about it. So, the end credit scenes. First one is, the first end credit scene is actually another reference that I couldn't remember. I forgot what it was off the top of my head, so that's why I kind of transitioned into my other note. But now I remember that it was an end credit scene. So, Bill Murray is actually sitting down with another woman. I can't remember if it's the same girl that was in the original Ghostbusters or if it was just someone else. It might have been. I can't remember. And she's holding up like playing cards or like flash cards. And it's a moment where in one of the first scenes in the original Ghostbusters, he's doing that to two of his students. And it's just great, like using flash cards and electric shocks. And she's doing the same thing to Bill Murray, like giving him electric shocks. And I'm like, yeah, that's a great classic reference to the original one. And I'm just like, yes, they did that. Because it's probably like, they could have done all these different references, right? But they chose to do that, which I think is something like really funny, really great. And as the end credit scene as well, it's just fantastic, something fantastic. But yeah, before the end credit scene, they do play the original Ghostbusters theme. When the movie ends, goes in the first credits, they do play the original Ghostbusters theme. They actually have the Ghostbusters logo pop up as well when it ends. So everything, the ghost logo with the circle through it, just everything works as well by the end of the film. So yeah, that's the first end credit scene. And the second one, you see the Ghostbusters, the secretary, that's the word I was trying to look for. The secretary, Annie Potts, and Ernie Hudson are talking together, and she asks him, what is your personality like? Like, what was your purpose as a Ghostbuster? And he's like, I was just the heart of the team. Or maybe not the heart, but he says he just was himself. But he will always be a Ghostbuster. He can be anything he does at his job, but he will always be a Ghostbuster. And that was just such a great line at the end of it. And then after that conversation, you see at the Ghostbusters headquarters a light flicker on the panel. On a panel, not the panel. What's the panel? And you see like danger come on, or below it, and then it fades to black, or doesn't fade to black, goes to black, and that's how the movie ends. And I'm just really interested to see where they go from here. I hope another movie comes out. I will definitely check it out. I love this movie. So how did it work? I just thought this movie worked in all the right places, all the right ways, and it all came together. All the elements, the soundtrack for sure, the acting, the cast, the story elements, even the cameos, the humor, the references, and well, I said the story, but yeah, just the soundtrack, even the soundtrack and the nostalgia factor pulled this movie all together, and I think it definitely worked on a Ghostbusters sequel better than Ghostbusters 2 and better than Ghostbusters 2016. Nobody should talk about that ever again, but definitely a great Ghostbusters sequel, and I cannot wait to see. I hope they do another one in the future. But yeah, I'll give this movie a rating, because I haven't really done this before, a movie rating. I have done it for like WandaVision, Loki. I think I did it for Black Widow and Shang-Chi. But regardless, I forgot to do it in my couple other movie reviews. But this movie, I will give it. Well, I'll give it an A, not an A plus. There were meh. It's not meh, but I'll give it an A, and I'll say it's. I really am like leaning towards a 9.5. I think it was that good. I would say a 9.5. It's a really good feel-good movie, really heartfelt, really energetic, not scary, but there are ghosts. There's a lot of good jumps in it. So yeah, that said, that's my review for Ghostbusters Afterlife. Hope you guys did enjoy this review. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe to stay up to date on other reviews and other videos that are on the channel. Leave a comment down below if you did check out the movie. Let me know. I would like to hear your thoughts on it and anything about this review. That would be a lot appreciated. And as well, don't forget to subscribe. Follow me at Boba Fett Jedi Master down below. Links down below on Instagram. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me. And as always, don't forget to keep calm and play like. See you guys in the next review. Bye, everyone.